Take your Bibles, please, and turn to 2 Samuel chapter 13. 2 Samuel chapter 13. There is a saying that goes like this. We've used it many times here. I don't know that I doubt we originated the saying, but we've heard it here many times. And it goes something like this. When things go wrong, don't go wrong with them. When things go wrong, they don't go wrong. Have you ever made a unwise choice only to follow it up with another unwise choice? All of us who have ever tried to lose weight and who have ever done the diet thing have experienced maybe at some level that wonderful feeling that comes when you have promised yourself you're not going to do something in relationship to food. And I mean something, either you're not going to eat until you lose 100 pounds or something, I'm not going to have any chocolate until I turn 185 or whatever thing you did, some kind of thing you're going to do with the food that you actually know in your heart will never actually take place, but it's a good try nonetheless. And you say it. And then something happens either 5 or 10 minutes later, maybe 5 days later. At some point something happens and the whole thing crumbles down. And so not only did you decide to do chocolate, but they had the sampler box on sale, 2 for the price of 1 or whatever, or the second one half price. And so you just dived in, and I'm only going to have 1 piece. Well, maybe 2. Okay, they're small. So 3. 1 of each. 1 of each. There you go. And so by morning, the thing is empty. And it just goes like downhill from there. You get to the point, well, I've already done this. Might as well, let's add some ice cream to it, okay, whatever it may be. Now, I use that because most people can relate to that at some level, okay? If not that, something else, okay? So I say that just to acknowledge that that's a challenge, okay? Now, you say, well, preacher, I thought we were done with David. And I did too. I really meant that. I tried to go on to Solomon. I did. I spent a time this week trying to move on to Solomon. I just kept coming back to this. So let's just do this so I can move to Solomon after Thanksgiving, okay? I want to move on. But I just did. Because I think that, I don't know about you. I told a couple people, somebody today, I think it was, that I have a doctorate in stupidity. I don't know about you, but I have my doctorate in stupidity. I've done enough stupid things over my life, made wrong choices. I think I must have it's not an earned doctorate, an honorary doctorate. Okay, maybe, and I don't know if any of you are like me who are doctors of stupidity, but anyhow, just makes wrong choices. You think, man, why did I do that? And for you older people who would know what this means, you have a V8 moment. Okay, now you got to be old enough to understand that one. If you don't, it's not that important anyhow. But the point is that you have just to deal with that. Okay. Now, with that said, let me give the setting here to this passage. It's actually chapters 13, 14, and a bit in chapter 15. But let me give you 3 things on the storyline to write down. Okay, if you're taking notes. Okay. And the first one we're going to talk about Ammon. Okay. Amnon defiling Tamar, and that's a terrible story, but it happened. And then, of course, you have Absalom killing Amnon. And then you have David failing Amnon, Tamar, and Absalom. I mean, this is like, my mother used to watch this, okay? The Edge of Night. Now, I don't know if anybody, none of you probably know what that means. Anybody know what I mean when I just said that? Anybody? All the old people, yes, knew that. Right. The Edge of Night. It was a soap opera, okay? And in the afternoons, my mother would watch The Edge of Night. And I'm not exactly sure all that it meant, but she watched it. And a couple times she watched it, and she was frying chicken, and that's the way that goes, and the fire and all of that. Happened twice. The second time, my dad took the insurance money, put it in the bank, and left the scars and everything to remind her not to watch The Edge of Night when she's frying chicken. But anyhow, be that as it may, this is also what it sounds like. Of course, modern day, a Springer kind of show, whatever kind of thing, or maybe CNN News. I'm not exactly sure about all that. Okay, then destroying of relationships and institutions. So this is like, that's the storyline of chapters 13, 14, and 15. So you would think, well, this is just not very encouraging. And it's not very encouraging at all, exactly. Amnon, now who is he? Amnon was David's first son, so he was the heir apparent. Okay, he was the next in line. Okay, he was David 2.0. And of course, David had problems with Bathsheba. And we didn't deal with that there because we've dealt with that before in the past, not too far long ago. That's why we didn't deal with it now. But you have David as firstborn, and he showed a tremendous lack of character and great selfishness. Now, Tamar, how many Tamars are there in the Bible? Do you know? 2 at least. Well, you're exactly right. There are 2 at least, and there's 3 exactly. But you're right. There's 2 at least, but 3 exactly. There are 3 of them. Okay, one, and I mentioned the beautiful daughter of Absalom, who was named Tamar, in 2 Samuel 14:27. That's the only mention of her. And then there's one found in Genesis chapter 38, and then this one here, which is King David's daughter. She had a full brother named Absalom and a half-brother named Amnon. Okay? Then you have Absalom, who was the 3rd son of David, King David. Okay? And the bulk of his story is in chapters 13 through 19. Now, I remember Absalom, the first time I remember any message on him, it was very many years ago, and this was the title of the message. I don't remember the message, but here was the title of the message. It was, The Hippie Got Hung and the Mule Walked On. That was the title. I have no idea what it's all about, but that was the title. The hippie got hung, and why do you think they said the hippie got hung? His hair was quite long, right, exactly, okay. So his little dad didn't do him at all when it came to his hairdo because he had quite a bit of hair. And then when he got hung up in the hair, what happened to him after that? Got ran by with the sword, right. So that was the end of him, okay. Exit stage left, okay. And then David winds back at the game. So those are those characters. Now, in this narrative, with all of this craziness going on, okay, you ever feel like that way in your life? A bunch of craziness going on, okay? Maybe not in your life particularly immediately, but the world around you. And then sometimes in your own life, and sometimes in your own life. So I want to give you 3 things to think about, and 3 things just to warn you about tonight when you're going through something wrong. This wrong response within wrong choices can be the wrong choices that other people make, and this is what happened here, okay? I mean, Tamar was innocent here, okay? She didn't do anything, okay? The rest of the guys were just all crazy and did wrong thing, but she didn't do anything, okay? She was the victim in this, okay? In that respect, okay? But anyhow, 3 things. First of all, let me encourage you to be careful about dishonest affections. Dishonest affections. You see, you got to make sure that that things, as things progress. Now, before this, of course, in chapters 11 and 12, you have the whole thing of David and Bathsheba and the baby dying and all that craziness going on. Now, these guys and gals, Tamar and Amnon and Absalom, they lived through that, okay? They were like, the children in the palace when all this stuff's going on, okay? And it was like well known. There was no secret. Everybody knew about it, okay? So this holier than thou King David, who killed Goliath, was chosen of God to be the king, and God blessed him greatly, and now he did this really bad thing, and the whole thing is crumbling here, okay? And so, but in the midst of this, you have some dishonest affection. Let me give you 3 things to write down, if you would. First of all, think about the dishonest intention, the dishonest condition, and the dishonest action. I'm going to give you 3 references to write down, one for each of these. The dishonest intent is in chapter 13 and verse 6. And Amnon lay down and made himself sick. When the king was come to see him, Amnon said unto the king, I pray thee, let Tamar my sister come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight that I might eat at her hand. Now, he wasn't really sick, but he was being dishonest. His intention was dishonest here. He did not want her to bring him a ho-ho from 7-Eleven. Not even a cookie crumble. Okay, that's not what he was after. Okay? He was not after the food, but it was this dishonest affection is characterized by dishonest intent. So be careful when things are going weird around you, that you guard your intent and that you make sure that you don't allow your intent to get skewed and you become a manipulator. Second, the dishonest conditions. In verse 9 it says, and she took a pan and poured them out before her, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, have out all men from me. And they went out every man from him. Okay? Now he's creating a dishonest condition here where he's with her by himself, where he should not have been. Okay? You do realize this. If you're never in a place where you can do that which you should not do, you will not do it. Okay? Which is probably a good reason why maybe the second and third gallon of ice cream we shouldn't take home, or maybe the fifth or sixth candy bar, whatever it may be, or whatever else it may be in your life where you are facilitating conditions that are not honest. Okay? You want to stop drinking. Well, maybe you should stop buying beer, right? If you want to stop drinking, maybe one of the first steps is just stop buying beer or whatever else you've been drinking. And don't bring it home. That's a novel concept, isn't it? If you don't have it, you're not going to drink it. You know what? I would never get tempted by drinking beer anyhow because this stuff stinks. I don't know why people drink it, but anyhow, that's another story in all of itself. But if you don't have it, you're not going to have it. Now, number 3, the actions. Now, look at verse 14. Okay? Howbeit, he's now forcing himself on. I don't want to get graphic about this. It's in here. It's true. I understand that. But howbeit, he would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than she, forced her and lay with her. Now watch this. The same man who took the action in verse 14 to do that which he should not have done in verse 15, and Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherein he hated her was greater than the love wherein he had loved her. And he said to her, arise and be gone. You see, his actions were dishonest. His affections were dishonest because his actions were dishonest. Not only in verse 14, in doing what he should not have done, but his response in verse 15, when he then just sent her away. And this whole skewed, dishonest affection with her. Okay? The Bible says in 2 Timothy chapter 3, 2 Timothy 3, verses 1 to 5, he warns us, this know also that in the last days, and these are the days in which we live, perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous and boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truth breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those things that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. And he's saying we live in a time that has a skewed dishonesty about itself. That certainly is true in the area of affections. Because we live in a society that says, if you feel it, it must be real. If you feel it, it must be real. It's legitimate. So if you have feelings for somebody or for something, it must be legitimate. Or if you don't have feelings, this whole idea of saying, I don't feel like I'm in love with somebody that I should love, be it a spouse or children or parents or enemies, Matthew 5:44. I don't feel like I love you. Well, that's just of no consequence. How you feel has nothing to do with whether you have love. Love can produce feelings, but love is not feelings. Love's a choice. Because every single time it's a choice to love, to value, and to sacrifice. I love people who value that. Karen called me the other day, and she said to me, you know, there's a musical Friday night. So I got that cue, and I'm glad she called me because she catches stuff like that. I like stuff like that now, and I didn't used to, but she trained me well. I mean, over the years, she said, you know, train up a husband the way he should go. She took me to him, and she said, this is how you sit and listen to a musical, and you don't hit your head against the wall, and you actually enjoy it. And so I do enjoy it. Okay? I do. It's not like I'm talking. Not opera, ballet. Not going to happen. But anyhow, but it'd be okay. But she never asked me to do a ballet. The whole ballet thing, I just can't. I could never. But anyhow, but the point is, when she said that my greatest desire Friday night. Now, if you have an emergency, you can call. If I have a cell phone, I might answer. That's fine. That it could happen. But we're going to the play. The musical. It's where they walk around and they talk a while, then they sing a bit. No idea what it's all about exactly, but it's going to be wonderful. Okay? You say, well, how do you know it's going to be wonderful? Well, because we're going to go. And it's a choice. And you have to make a choice with the people you love. You just choose to love them. That's how all that works, right? That's God's plan. That's what happened here. The opposite happened here, okay? All right, so let's move on, okay? Not only was there dishonest affection, but you also have here the destructive anger. Now, anger is a powerful thing. You ever get mad? I don't get mad, I just get even, okay? You ever get mad? Let me ask you to write, the anger that unfolds after this dishonest affection is threefold, okay? And there's isolated anger, there's boiling anger, and there's vengeful anger. So this is like the anger. Have you ever noticed that there's these things, shows at these stores out now called, not olive oil? What's one that Grace has? What do they sell? What does Grace sell? Olive oil. Yes, it's a whole shop of oil. There's more than one. Did you know that? I never knew there was more than one oil. I didn't know anything about it. But they have a bunch of them. Okay? Evidently, there's a whole litter of them. There's a whole flock of it. Okay, I don't know what you do with them, but they must do something because they sell a lot of it. I've seen a number of stores like that. I don't know anything about it. But I do know this. There are at least three kinds of anger. There's isolated anger, there's boiling anger, and there's vengeful anger. Now look at chapter 13, chapter 13, and verse 21. Okay? But when the king heard of all these things, that would be the things with Amnon and Tamar, he was very wroth. Now, if your version doesn't have a period after that, you got the wrong Bible. Period. Just that's it. He just steps back and isolates himself. He wasn't a happy camper about this. But he isolates. I'm angry, but I'm going to fix it by coming over here. That's like people that get angry, in relationships, like in marriages, and then they leave the house. Well, that's just, what are you going to accomplish doing that? You're going to leave the house. Well, the problem's here. Any place you go isn't going to be a positive move. The problem is here. Why would you leave the house? And so, but anger can isolate, and that's a dangerous thing. Sometimes we isolate by not bringing it up. We're angry, but we're not going to say anything until we had enough of it and had it up to here, then we blow up. But there's isolation. And then there's this boiling. Look at verse 22. Absalom spake unto his brother Amnon neither good nor bad. For Absalom hated Amnon because he had forced his sister Tamar. He is boiling. Now, we don't know if he's around him or not, but this is a boiling kind. Let me give you a couple of references to write down. First of all, on the isolated anger, let me give you another example. 1 Samuel 18. 1 Samuel 18 and 7 through 9. And Saul had that problem with David. When the ladies said, Saul has slain his thousands, David says tens of thousands, and he in his isolation started imagining that David was after his throne, when nothing can be further from the truth. But then you have this boiling anger that Absalom has. Let me give you this reference to write down, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. Ephesians 4:26, be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. When you allow anger to boil within inside of you, you are asking for tremendous problems. This is going to end with murder and chaos that will eventually end with a rebellion and the hippie gets hung and the mule walks on kind of thing. It's all going to come out. And it all starts here in verse 22 with Absalom being angry and not dealing with it. Tonight, if you are angry, deal with it. Deal with it. Don't let it boil. And then, of course, you have vengeful anger in verse 28. And Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, Mark ye now, when Absalom's heart is merry with wine, and when I say unto you, smite Amnon, then kill him, fear not, have not I commanded you, be courageous and be valiant. Notice how he is putting that little twist. Be valiant. Be good men. Kill that guy. He's taking vengeance. Romans chapter 12, verse 19 warns us, Romans 12, 19, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. Okay, I will repay, saith the Lord. Now watch this. The phrase says, give not place unto wrath. You see, when you allow anger to boil inside of you, you give it a place. And you give it a place to affect your reasoning. That's why he says here in Romans 12, 19, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. He's saying, get your mind back in line with God's word. He's saying in principle what it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 5, when it says, bring every thought into captivity to the knowledge of Christ. Start thinking right about your sin, about your anger. Matthew chapter 5, verse 44 says, Matthew 5:44, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh the sun to rise on evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. For if we love them which love you, if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans do the same? See, there's no big deal when you love people that are nice to you. But, and it says, and if you salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans do so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Which means we are to alter our response to those who've hurt us, who've made us angry, who've made you angry. I want to warn you, I want to encourage you about the destructive anger that happens when you isolate your anger, when you allow your anger to boil, and when you allow your anger to become vengeful. Okay? Those are really unhealthy and difficult situations. Those are wrong responses in the midst of wrong choices. But here's a third one that often happens, and that is debilitating apathy. Debilitating apathy. I just not going to care. It's not going to do anything about it. Our response is going to be just sit on the sideline. I've had it up to here. I've tried. It doesn't do any good. Let me give you 3 things to write down, if you would. I want you to think about inactivity, about inconsistency, and about ignorance and the danger, the debilitating aspect of all of those. Look at chapter 13. We're still in chapter 13. Now, what's happened is Absalom's killed Amnon, had him killed, and he takes off. Verse 37, Absalom fled. He takes off. Okay. But there's verse 39. And the soul of King David longed to go forth unto Absalom. For he was comforted concerning Amnon, seeing he was dead. And it seems to say to me, that I read this, just a cursory reading, that he's saying, he got what he deserved. He's my son, but he got what he deserved. But I really love Absalom, and I want to go after him. But he doesn't do it. he doesn't do it. His apathy takes over. Now, you say, preacher, it's not going to do any good. I understand. But see, the reason why you do the right thing is not because it might do good. It's because it's right. It's because it's the right thing to do. It's like, why do we visit people whose minds have left their ability to comprehend who we are? Because it's the right thing to do. It's because of who they are. Because of what we know. When I used to visit my mother and she didn't know who I was, but if I had a frozen Snicker, I was her friend. Because my mom, if you gave my mom a Coca-Cola and a frozen Snicker, life was good. I don't care what condition she was in. And I'd go visit her, and she wouldn't know who I was, and I would tell her things that she didn't even care to hear, and about her family, and about her grandkids, and about my life. But I had to do something. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. My visit to her was not going to change her dementia. It wasn't going to bring her back, right? It's the right thing to do. And when things go wrong around you, be very careful that you don't use the template of saying, well, if I think this will help, I'll do it. But if I don't think it's going to help, I'm just going to pull back. Well, that's the wrong question to ask. Because you're not responsible for your consequences to your obedience to God. And nor are you able to see what God might do with what you do. I went to the hospital the other day on Monday. A person I've been thinking about and praying for years is in a certain physical situation. So I was in the room by myself. I leaned over. I called his name out. And I said, now, Jesus, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting myself. I didn't write down what I said, but I said this to effect. Jesus loves you and died on the cross for you. And if you will ask him to forgive you your sins and to be your Savior, you can become a Christian right here, right now. Again, I'm summarizing what I said. He said, well, what did they say? Well, they were unresponsive. I mean, they were making sounds, but they were unresponsive. Well, why did I do it? It wasn't an exercise in futility. It's an exercise in faithfulness. I had the opportunity. I wouldn't tell him this for long this time. It's the first chance I had to tell him. Where he would let me tell him. Of course, I didn't have much choice in the matter, but I told him. And you never know what God might do. So don't let inactivity, Romans 13, let me give you a reference to write down. Romans 13, 11 through 13. And what, knowing the time is now, it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believe. Night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness. Let's put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in riotous or drunkenness, nor in chamberings or wantonness, not in strife and in envy. Let us just do the right thing. Romans 13, 11 through 13. That last phrase I added. But just look through the next right thing. And inconsistency. Look at now what happens as this thing unfolds in chapter 14, through different events, Absalom's wind-up is allowed to come back home. But look at verse 24 of chapter 14. And the king said, let him turn to his own house, let him not see my face. So Absalom returned to his house and saw not the king's face. Inconsistency. He does partial reconciliation. He can come back, but not to the house. I want to just warn you about something. Be very careful about being inconsistent and not following all the way through. If you're like I am, if you ever play golf, you hate to be coached. I hate to be coached. I do. In fact, if I had to be coached, I won't play golf. I don't want to be coached because my goal in golf is never get any better than I am. Was back in 1980, and I have succeeded. I've golfed for 40 years and haven't gotten a bit better and don't want to get any better. I enjoy the game socially and fun time like that, but I really don't want to get any better at all. Okay? But occasionally I will find somebody that I really appreciate to be with, but they feel a need to help me. And then they want to tell me about following through and all the rest of it, and I'm just totally not interested. Okay? Now, if we're playing golf, that's okay. But if you have a problem with somebody and people are doing wrong things, you don't have the option to not following through. You got to be consistent and deal with it in the right way. You don't know what the future holds, but deal with it in the right way. And then you have ignorance. And that's chapter 15. I realize your text doesn't say that, but let's go ahead and look at chapter 15. Because by 15, what's happening now after 2 years, Absalom now has plotted. Look what's happening in verse 1. It came to pass after this that Absalom prepared him chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. Now basically what he's saying is he's made him an entourage. So when he comes through, that's an important person. Okay? Verse 20 to verse 2. And Absalom rose up early and stood beside the way of the gate. And it was so that when any man had a controversy come to the king for judgment, that Absalom called unto him and said, "Of what city art thou?" And he said, "I serve this of one of the tribes of Israel." Absalom said unto him, "See, thy matters are good and right, but there is no man deputed of the king to hear thee." Absalom said, moreover, "Oh, that I were made judge in the land, that every man which hath any suit or cause might come unto me, and I would do him justice." This is called a campaign slogan. We all have different slogans. And they change over time. You do know this, don't you? In the 1876 election, the Democratic slogan for the presidency was, "It's a white man's country, and it should stay that way." That was their slogan in 1876. They didn't win, but that was their slogan. I don't think it would be their slogan in 2024. I doubt. But that was their slogan then. Okay, but this is the slogan here. Okay, I'll bring you justice. And it was so, in verse 5, that when any man came nigh to him to do him obeisance, he put forth his hand and took him up and kissed him. Oh, don't humble yourself. Come on, we're all equal. And all of that, now watch this, is taking place at the gate. Where's the king? He's ignorant of it. Either ignorant by default or ignorant by choice. Now listen to me. When people are doing wrong things, you simply can't put your head in the sand and say, "I'm just going to be ignorant of it." There are times you have to respond. You have to nip it in the bud, as it were. I just finished a book on World War II about Churchill and Stalin and Roosevelt. And Roosevelt's last meeting with Stalin and Churchill, and how Roosevelt attempted to placate Stalin and made choices that basically eventually created the Iron Curtain, gave all those countries to Russia, okay? Because he tried to ignore things. Because they were all saying we're going to have free elections. And Stalin told the next president, Truman, he said, "We can't have free elections. We had free elections in those countries. None of them would choose to be communists, so we can't have free elections." And they didn't for 40, 50 years. The point I'm making is you can't ignore things. You got to be careful when things go wrong. One of the wrong choices is to ignore what you should be dealing with. That's all I'm saying to you. So be careful, okay? So what's the point of this? You say, "Preacher, this is not very encouraging." Well, it's designed to be encouraging. It's designed to be encouraging to challenge you, to make sure that your affections are not dishonest, but honest. To make sure that your anger is not ignored and not destructive, but that it's righteous anger that's properly dealt with. And then that you will avoid the apathy of inactivity, inconsistency, and ignoring what needs to be dealt with. Why? Because you can't make things right. I'm not going to write this down. I cannot make things right, but I can always do what is right. I can't make things right. I can't make the other person change. I can't make the thing go away. But I can always do the next right thing. So let your heart be encouraged tonight.